Thank you very much. We are interviewing Dr. Mary Ann Harris. She is the president of the National Association of Black Storytellers for the year of 2013. And I welcome you here for this particular interview. Thank you very much for agreeing to this.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm going to start out and I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your family history. Starting with yourself. Are you a native East Clevelander or did you come here by migration from the South?
Actually, I lived in Cleveland since I was 8 years old, and I moved to East Cleveland when I got married in 1972.
Okay, now East Cleveland in 1972. Let's step back just a little bit. You lived in Cleveland at 8 years old?
Since I was 8 years
Since,
old.
okay, where did you move from?
I moved from Moultrie, Moultre, Moultrie, Georgia.
Georgia.
It's southeast Georgia, and it's a small town, still small.
Okay, did you come here with your
I came here
parents?
with my parents, my mother actually, my mother and four sisters, two sisters and two brothers. It's five in my family.
Okay, and what made your mother move from Moultrie, Georgia to Cleveland?
She had a sister that lived here,
Okay.
and they lived at 582 East 105th Street.
Oh,
The address is always good memories in my mind.
okay.
And they were the custodians for that building. And of course, they lived in a basement apartment. And it was a huge apartment. And at the time, my aunt didn't have any children, so and her husband. So we had the whole 2 or 3 rooms to ourselves.
Okay. Now, what's elementary school? Do you remember the elementary school that you attended?
Oliver Wendell Holmes. It was called O.W. Holmes, and the principal there was Miss McFadden, and she wore these black lace-up shoes, and she was very nice.
Okay.
And in fact, when I moved here, I was supposed to be in the second grade, but of course, they didn't put me in the second. They put me in the second grade because I was very tall. However, the second grade teacher, Miss Kling, she was a lady with red hair, and she wore these gold frame glasses. Later, we discovered the red hair was a wig, but she was very nice, and she had me wash her boards at the end of every day. And I discovered she had me read the things off the board. Actually, I couldn't read when I came to Cleveland. Actually, I'd never been to school. So when I came to Cleveland, like I said, I remembered things because I could always tell people things. I could look at pictures, I could listen to people. I had a good memory. So people would think I could read, but I really couldn't read. Instead of reading something, I would tell them about it. So it sounds so much like what I saw or heard people read or say that, of course, they believed it, but Miss Clean was a very sharp teacher, and she soon found out I couldn't read, and so she would help me read as I washed the boards. And then I always got like $1 or something like that, at least 50 cents. I know I got money,
Oh, okay.
and I was happy to get that for washing the boards every week and learning to read. And I finally got on my own with the reading.
Okay, so you were being tutored in reading and earning money at the same time.
Absolutely, and
Okay.
that was great.
Now, do you remember the first book that you completed that became your favorite?
Well, I could say Little Red Riding Hood, but one of the books that I always remember reading is Dick and Jane and Spots. And that was, of course, back in the day. Um, but it was interesting.
Okay. Now, you went from the second grade. You said you also had siblings that came up along
Yes.
with your mom. Okay. Your mom, what profession was she in?
Well, my mother never finished high school. She actually went to the 8th grade. And she worked at a factory called Walter Specialists, and it was on the west side.
Okay, and what did they produce?
They made what do you call boats or something like that for parts of some kind of machine.
Okay. And what about your siblings, your brothers and sisters?
Well, my brother was the oldest. I'm the second oldest, the oldest girl, and he went to Cleveland Public Schools. My two sisters, everybody went to Cleveland Public Schools. It was Cleveland Public Schools back in the day. Now it's Cleveland Metropolitan School District. But we know it as Cleveland Public Schools, and at that time, Paul Briggs was the superintendent of schools. Okay, so they all went to Cleveland Public Schools and graduated.
Okay. And once you graduated, what college did you attend?
Actually, I had the good fortune to attend Knoxville College and graduate, and I attended Knoxville College on a full scholarship. I initially wanted to go to Tennessee State in Nashville, but I did not get the scholarship. Tried out for a track scholarship, and someone else got it. But the guidance counselor, she helped me obtain a scholarship to Knoxville College, and she told me about it. So I was happy that she told me about it, and I applied there and said, well, if I can't get to Tennessee State, well, I'll try Knoxville because it's not that far. At least it's in Tennessee. So that was my main reason for attending Knoxville. And so I got to Knoxville, got to meet folks and from all over the South, because most of the people I knew, although I was born in the South, were from Ohio and whatnot. And I was happy that I went to Knoxville College, and I got there and I stayed there. I put Tennessee State out of my mind. But I did major in physical education while I was there. So I had an opportunity to run track and practice and do things of that nature. But I soon found out it really took a lot more to become an Olympic star. And that was my goal for wanting to go to Tennessee State. I just decided to put it on the wayside. But who knows, I may get in the Olympics as a senior citizen one day.
Okay, very good. So you were excellent, excellent. Now, when you discovered that you were a track star, what high school were you attending?
Oh, I graduated from Glenville,
Okay,
Glenville High School.
very good. And what about Tennessee? Was there something in the state of Tennessee or someone in the state of Tennessee that made you want to go, to Tennessee State?
Well, Tennessee State was a school. If you wanted to become eligible or to even try out for the Olympics, Tennessee State was the school for African Americans at that time. And there was a teacher, physical education teacher. We would go to track meets, and she was at Glenville, Miss Babbitt. Actually, they named streets after her. She lived in Euclid, so that's how that Babbitt Street, that name, her Babbitt family, long family history. But Miss Babbitt, she was a physical education teacher, and like I said, she lived in Euclid, and she taught for Cleveland Public Schools. And after she later became head of the physical education division for the Cleveland Public Schools. And of course, we kept in touch with her over the years. And she always told us that if you really want to pursue the Olympics, Tennessee State is the school. And of course, during my time, other folks were trying out, and another girl got the opportunity. It was probably Eleanor Montgomery. I may have it wrong, but I think it was probably Eleanor Montgomery that got the track scholarship. I know Madeline Manning, she was years ahead of me. She actually was in the Olympics, and Eleanor was in the Olympics. She did the shot put.
Okay, very good. That is fantastic. And Miss Babbitt, what is Miss Babbitt's first name?
You know, I can't remember at this time. I can't remember.
All right, well that's very interesting because we're all familiar with the street Babbitt Road, but had no idea that it was named after a teacher here.
Well, her family name. because she never married.
Okay, that is great. Okay, now tell me about how you arrived in the city of East Cleveland.
Well, of course, I think we probably was, like I said, I had gotten married, and we were probably looking for some place to stay. And I believe we rented a two-family.
Okay, let's back up. You got married. How did you meet your husband?
Well, I met my husband during the time I was in, I think it was probably the senior year of high school. I worked at a drugstore. It was called Marshall's High School. And it was right across where John Hay is now. It was on the other side, going on, it's called Stokes Boulevard now. There was a Marshall's drugstore there. And I worked in that store after school on the weekends and in the summers. And I think one day after school they needed someone to work, and they called me, and I was there. And my husband at the time was, he was a male, he was a special delivery messenger. And he would come in that store, he said, every day to have a milkshake or something of that nature and something to eat. And so I worked the fountain. And he said, but I've never seen you before with those red shoes on. And I had on some flats, red shoes, and a little white uniform we wore. So that's how I met him, but he actually came in looking for someone else. And he said it was his cousin, but I said, oh yeah, tell me. So he said, well, what's your name? I said, Barbara Brown. He said, Barbara Brown? Oh, can I get your phone number? I said, nope. Don't give strangers my phone number. And I think he actually probably came back later that evening. I'll give you a ride home. I said, nope, my brother's coming to walk me home. And so that's how I actually met my husband. Okay. He was very persistent.
Okay, so he returned to the fountain shop frequently.
Yes, he always did. And I told him that I usually worked the weekends and never after school, and I did, because I always studied after school.
Okay, that's great. That's a nice story. Okay, now you say you two got married, and you were looking for an apartment here in the city of East Cleveland. Mm-hmm. Okay, and how did that search go?
Well, actually, we didn't find or could afford what we found, so we actually ended up moving in a two-family house off Noble Road.
Okay, this is 1970?
1972.
Okay.
And we were in the downstairs of a two-family house on Noble Road.
Okay. And what are some of your fondest memories of East Cleveland, some of your early memories?
Well, I got involved with the community in East Cleveland after we moved here. I especially was involved with the schools, although at the time I did not work for the East Cleveland schools. I actually worked for Case Western Reserve University in a program called the Geriatric Outreach Workers Program, and it was one of those AIMS programs that was designed. It was a job training program back in the day, and they trained folks who lived in the CMHA apartments as outreach workers to work with the elderly. And I had just graduated from Wayne State University with a master's, and that was a concentration in gerontology, and it was through the University of Michigan and Wayne State Institute of Gerontology. And I actually received federal money to participate in the program. So of course I took the challenge and spent a year and summer and graduated from that program and got a job in Cleveland, and it was based at Case Western Reserve University.
Okay, good. So with that job, you were stationed in the city of Cleveland to perform the duties that you were trained for, and then you slowly worked your way into the city of East Cleveland?
Well, actually, I worked out of Case Western Reserve, and I helped train the people who were to become geriatric outreach workers. We trained them. I did the research piece and helping them find opportunities for clients, for learning how to deliver the services, and the writing of the program to help it be more sellable or marketable to the various senior citizens complexes, because the contract was with all of the CMHA complex apartments, centers, and apartments for the elderly. So, and at that time, Metro CMHA housing had a large number. And so that was a job. I kept that job for a couple of years. But we lived still on our salary back in that day. It wasn't very much. So the house was the best deal. And we were thinking about buying that two-family house at any rate, but we didn't.
Okay. Now, in moving into that particular neighborhood, were there any challenges? Was the area still mixed? Was it 40% or 50% black or white?
Mm-hmm. Well, basically, I think back in 1972 on Noble Road, that the two-family house that we lived in was owned by a real estate person called Rita Stewart. And she had her office in the building, the house right next to us. She had the first floor of the other house, but she owned that house, and we lived on the first floor. In that area, you found that there were both African Americans and white people, and they all worked and lived together.
So there was no conflict whatsoever?
None.
Okay, now on Noble Road, what was the city like? Was there a lot of retail stores?
A lot of stores.
Commerce? Okay.
Yes, it was. And at that time, it was right across the street from GE. And GE was really thriving in the community as actually the largest employer. And of course, we stayed there maybe 3-4 years or more, or maybe 5. We really loved that area, and I especially loved it during Christmas time because the display was really beautiful. It was a big, huge display, very beautiful, and everybody came from miles around to see it. And I said, oh, all I have to do is walk across the street or look out my window.
Yes, beautiful display by GE every Christmas.
Absolutely.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Okay, now what are some of your fondest memories about the city of East Cleveland?
Well, when I first moved to East Cleveland, it was on a commission. There were commissioners, and there was a city manager operation, style of government. And I enjoyed people coming together for community meetings, attending the city commission meetings, being able to speak up and speak out. Police were very strict at the time, and a lot of community people were involved. I especially met a lady called Miss Jones, and she's deceased now. A lot of people knew Miss Jones, and Miss Jones was one of those kind of neighbors who always spoke out and was always involved. And I believe she lived on, I can't think of the street now, but her house, she lived in this house that was pink and white. And I would always tease her about it. I said, oh, you live in that AKA house and you're a Delta. And so she would laugh it off and whatnot. But she lived there for, many, many, many years.
Now, you recall Miss Jones's first name?
Evelyn Ragland Jones.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Miss Evelyn Ragland Jones.
All right. Okay, she's been active in recent years as well, right?
She stayed active until she got sick, and then she moved to Atlanta to stay with one of her children, and she passed away, made her transition down in Atlanta. maybe about 3 to 4 years ago.
I remember that name. She's very...
Evelyn Ragland Jones. Actually, she was a member of the library, East Cleveland Public Library Board of Trustees for many years.
She's a very good person.
Yes.
Okay. Now, with what you've shared some of your fondest memories of the city of East Cleveland. Now, what are some of the things that you've seen changed inside the city of East Cleveland over time?
Well, I think the attitude of the people,
How so?
in terms of not really putting forth the energy to speak up and speak out about conditions in their community, especially housing. The housing, I think, has gone downhill and is getting not making any progress. So I think that's one of the things that we really need to make progress with and improve on in East Cleveland, and get people more involved in their conditions, so that they can speak up and have a very worthwhile surroundings and environment.
Okay. Now, how would you go about improving the attitudes about housing here in the city of East Cleveland? What would be your suggestion?
Well, what I would do if I had the opportunity, I would provide an opportunity for everybody through grants and federal monies, if it was available, to apply for it, to fix up those houses and raffle them off to people, auction them off to folks, offer them to folks who could pay the taxes on the house and the water bill, because that's two of the main factors here. And maybe there was a time when they provided a loan to folks where they could fix the house up and have a home for themselves and their family. And a lot of these people I'm thinking about are the people who have children in the schools, so they'll be here for a while because the schools are good. They could, of course, be better, but they're good. And that's one of the ways that I would suggest.
Okay, that sounds good. That's something the mayor should hear about.
Well, he's probably worked, listened to something of that nature before.
Very good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, now, with the housing, well, and that was just one point that you touched on, but let's see, you also discussed like the police. You said the police used to be much stricter than what they are now. What do you think happened to make that and the housing situation come about?
Well, I think the economic times. When the economy falls and people do not have jobs and money, they're not homeowners. And most times the majority of homeowners take pride in their homes. So they're going to work to keep it up. They have the money to keep it up. And there's the homes in the neighborhood around them, they're going to keep those up. Because it's just something that you do. It's a part of the American dream. And so I think that's one of the biggest problems there. The reason why people have not money, economics. In terms of police, one of the first things that are usually cut, they cut the police because they say, well, we can't afford to have all these police. But when you cut police, have you looked at the analysis of where the crime rate, when there are less police and more police, when they're visible, that makes a difference.
Okay, very good. Now, with some of the things that you have mentioned with the economic climate, the change in attitudes of the people that live in the city of East Cleveland, do you think, or how has race or racism impacted the city?
Well, I think now because East Cleveland is predominantly African American, I think the racism issue really isn't a factor so much as the not taking or stepping up to the African American people who are here, taking the responsibility to learn about their past, and how it affects the present and, of course, the future. I think that's one of the biggest concerns that I have in terms of East Cleveland. I don't think racism really is a problem. Actually, I would say that in general, because if a person knows their history, their heritage, their culture, and they take pride in it, racism is something that can be, the challenge cannot personally affect you because you have a strong feeling about who you are. And when you have a strong feeling about who you are and where you want to go and how you're going to get there, racism is a part of any society. So I wouldn't put that as a key factor in East Cleveland, per se.
Okay. Now, you said there that the people in the community, the black people in the community, should learn more about their history in order to adjust their present and their future. What things
Absolutely.
what things would you like for them to really take from their history to use in their everyday life today?
Well, I think that if they think back and look back at somebody in their family, someone in their family made a way to help them get where they are today, whether they are at the top of the salary or at the bottom of the salary. Someone made a sacrifice in their family. Mother, father, grandfather, aunt, uncle helped push and helped pull them along the way. Now, maybe somewhere along the way, they got challenged and strayed away. And it's I guess, a individual thing there. However, as a group of people, someone in your family helped, pushed, and pulled you, and you got sidetracked along the way. But how can we help that person? Well, I believe education is the key. Services, being able to, once again, understand who you are can make a person stronger and be able to just withstand challenges on a stronger basis and taking more interest in their personal well-being and health. Health plays a great factor. When people let themselves go, they let their health go. And when health goes, things begin to go down, down, down.
Okay. You've stated that racism does not necessarily have to impact a person. It exists no matter what.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I want to make sure that you get an opportunity to express again how you feel that racism does not necessarily impact you in your personal experience.
Well, in my personal experience, I've come through the day when I was the first person to say, for example, at Wayne State University, I was the first person to receive the federal money for the gerontology certification, new program that they had. And of course, I was an African American, so I was the first person to receive that. Actually, long story short, I turned the money down because I was first year out of college. I was teaching in Cleveland. And so I said, oh, I want to keep this job and whatnot. And after the first year, I said, oh, these people offered me the money, go, and I want to stay. I think I better think about it. And so I thought about it and talked to some folks in my church about it. the minister, Reverend S.L. Cole at the time, from Morning Star Baptist Church. We were at 650 Parkwood Drive, and I remember going around there one day telling Reverend Cole about I had this opportunity to go to Detroit, but I didn't really want to go because they said a lot going on in Detroit. And so he said, sister, you need to do what's best for you. This is the opportunity. Take it. Take the opportunity. And they're paying for everything and giving you money every month. I said, yes. He said, take it. And so I had turned it down. Now, I went to talk to Reverend Cole after I had turned everything down. And so he said, well, see what you can do to get it back. And so one morning I got up, put on something with a hat, and at that time you could go to the airport and buy a ticket and just get on the plane. And that's what I did. I bought a ticket and I got on a plane and went to Detroit, just what I had on my back. And I went over to the Detroit University, Wayne State University, the office where I had said no, and I spent the whole day in Detroit talking to folks and trying to get it back. And I convinced somebody because they said, well, you have to come back the next day because such and such a person's not here. So I said, the next day, I'm from Cleveland. I didn't bring anything with me. And so this one lady, she worked in the office, she was a friendly African-American lady, she said, you could get a room at the YWCA overnight. And so that's what I did. I got a room at the YWCA, Detroit YWCA. It was on 22nd and John. So I got that room, and I went back the next day with what I had on, the same thing, and talked to everybody, and they said, well, okay. I met with 2 or 3 different folks in the department, and there was I think an interview, and they said, okay, you came all the way, you said, from Cleveland? Did you come on the bus? I said, no, I came on the plane. And I thought I was going back on the plane. And so I was able to get my money and start back in September.
Okay, good.
And that's how I got my money. And that challenged me because I think it's racism. They could have said, well, no. But I was the first person, the first African-American person. I was the first person. They had not given that money. And they said, you know, you were just fortunate because they only had money for one person. The program was going on, but they only had money in their grant to pay for one person because it was a new program. And that's all they had written into it. And so I was very fortunate. And it was a wonderful experience.
That's an honor. Very good.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is great. Okay, now, let's see. The school board. You were on the East Cleveland School Board?
Oh, yes, for 24 years.
Okay, tell me about your experience with that.
Well, actually, I got on the East Cleveland School Board after we had moved to our house on 143rd Street. We bought that house, and at that time it was right in back of Shaw High School. Not Shaw High School, Chambers Elementary School. There was a swimming pool back there. The city owned the swimming pool. And right in that area also was the Shaw High School Stadium. Well, Shaw High School, the school board wanted to tear the stadium down because they said it needed too many repairs. So like I said, I was involved in physical education, and I felt that if they tore the stadium down, where would the kids go for the football? And at that time, you could go over there in the track, and I would go over and run around and do some laps. They would have it open where you could go. Now they have it closed up. but you could actually go over there, and that's what I did. And so I gathered a group of people together. Well, I didn't gather the folks. I would attend community meetings at different places just because I like to see how people operated in the city. I would attend senior citizen meetings. I would attend the different community street club meetings. And someone stood up and said, well, they want to tear down Shaw Stadium. And where will our kids go? And I said, that's right. I said, well, what can we do? I said, we can start a petition. So I couldn't really type. I didn't like typing, but I typed up a petition with a name on it, save Shaw Stadium, and made a list of numbers, about 25, and Xeroxed the papers. And I said, we can get all our friends who are voters to sign to sign this petition. And that's what we did. We filled these petitions up, and we took them to a school board meeting. Now, I didn't say anything at the meeting. I'm always very quiet. I let the people who were outspoken handle it, but I helped them get the petition signed and came up with the idea because, see, this is what you got to do. Not be the out front person, but try and help. And so they talked, and the folks at the school board said, well, people have come before. We don't have time for that. And so I said, I didn't say anything. They said, okay, we'll take the petitions. They took them. And we had made copies, so we knew who had signed it with their address and whatnot. And so I said, well, you know what we can do at another meeting? I said, we can put some people on the school board who will do what's best for the children. And so that's when I ran for the school board.
Okay, now were you feeling that there was some inequality on the school board at that time that made you make that decision to run to be a part of the school board at at the East Cleveland School Board?
Well, I ran because I felt that they were not putting the interests of the children first, and they wanted to just save money. I said the people pay taxes, and back then they were always passing school levies. And I said, somebody has to look out for the children. And I said, I don't think anybody is concerned about the children. So that's why I decided to run. And first time I ran, I won. I got over 5,000 votes, the most votes anybody had ever had. This is what I was told. And I only had $5, spent $5 or $25. I think somebody gave me $20. And I had $5 where I made copies of literature and stuff. And somebody else made, like I said, about $20. And we passed it out at the different meetings. And we asked those people to tell their friends to vote and knocked on doors. And I went to all the meetings, and that's how I won.
Oh, congratulations. Now, how
Thank
large,
you.
You're welcome. How large was the school board at that time?
Oh, we've always had 5 members.
5 members.
The smaller school districts have 5 members, and the large school districts like Cleveland, Toledo, Youngstown, they have 7 members.
Now, in the 22 years that you were on the school board,
24.
24 years, can you share some of the experiences that you had on the school board, some good, some not so good?
Well, I think all the experiences that I had were worthwhile, whether they may have been good or not so good, because from each lesson, each experience, I believe I learned a lesson. For example, I think when I first got on the school board, there was a concern of mine about the stadium. Well, we were able to save the stadium, and then they saved it, but never wanted to put any money in it. So I kept bringing it up, kept fighting for it, getting the community people to come in about it. So eventually we got them to put some money in the stadium.
Okay, now question. Why do you think perhaps the reason for not wanting to invest in the stadium?
Well, I think they basically they said, well, it needs more money than what we want to put in it. Let's tear it down and rebuild. But I also know that once you tear things down, you don't have a plan with the money to rebuild. If you don't have any money to fix it up, then where are you going to get the money to rebuild? That's my thinking in the beginning. And so I said, that's not adding up. We need to keep what we have and fix it up. And if we can get another stadium along the way, then fine. Let's do that. And so that was one of the challenges that I had on the school board. The other experiences were worthwhile because I got involved with our state school board association and our national school board association. So I would be able to I met folks from all around the state who served on school boards. I met folks on the national basis who served on school boards. In fact, I was the only regional president that Northeast region, Ohio School Board is divided into, I think it's probably 5 regions. And the Northeast was one of the largest regions. And I was the first African American female of the Northeast region. The first person, period, of the Northeast region as president. In fact, they celebrated 65 years this 2012 for the founding of the Ohio School Board Association. And I went to a dinner back in the fall rather, of 2012 to be honored as one of the presidents of the Northeast region. And I was president back in 1998, Northeast Region Ohio School Boards Association. I was involved with the National Black Caucus for the National School Boards Association, and one of the vice presidents of that organization for the Black Caucus. The Black Caucus has a long history in the state of Ohio because the founder of the Black Caucus was Leo Lucas, and he was a dentist. He was a school board member from Dayton City Schools. And I keep saying I'm going to find all the information, and I would like to see the history of the Black Caucus written for the state of Ohio and actually nationally, but I've yet to decide to really sit down and pull it together, but I have all the paperwork. And it would be something really for all the school board people, African American ones that are coming on now, to see that the Black Caucus it's not just there. We fought to keep it alive, and now it's a part of the Ohio School Boards did take the opportunity to give appoint or assign a staff person to help the Black Caucus with their administrative responsibilities and duties and whatnot. And that's important. But I also would like to see the Ohio School Boards, they will put the history, we can put that history together, and they'll distribute it to our school board members here in Ohio because it's important. Leo Lucas started it, Helen Arnold back in Akron, she fought for it. And with their fight, I took the fight up because I felt that somebody had to keep pushing for it. And so I'm happy now that it's still going, and it needs to be stronger so folks can realize schools are the key. You can't make it without a good education.
You're absolutely correct. Okay, now, school board, what would you think was your I won't say greatest accomplishment, but what stands out the most besides the stadium?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think just the continuous fight to put education of the children first rather than to be concerned about the money, about the buildings. What are you doing with the curriculum so that the children are able to take responsibility for their own education and own learning to a certain degree? Are we serving these children to our maximum? The answer can be yes and it can be no.
Okay, now do you feel there is some type of inequality that is impacting the education of the students that live in the city of East Cleveland?
Well, no, I don't. But what I think is the parent involvement, unless you push the parents to be involved academically for their children, they're busy. They're working. If they're not working, they're at home worried about the bills or where they got to move to or how they got to get this done. We got to help them push and pull their children, and we got to do it by educating the parents. A lot of the parents did not complete school, and this OGT, the Ohio Graduation Test, could be one of the reasons. When it first started, it was Ohio Proficiency Test, and that was back in 1994. I remember very clearly because I sat on a state committee, the writing committee, for that. So I think the challenge is to work more closely with our parents. They come out when their children are performing for different activities, performances. But when it's curriculum night to see how your child is doing in school, or just stopping up at the school to see, are things working? If they're not working, how can I help to make them work? We got to get them more involved in their children, because when the children see them more involved, they will become more involved and interested in their own learning. How do we do it? One parent at a time. It's like an elephant eating an apple. You see, the elephant can grab the whole apple. Yeah, but can we grab the parent? The answer is no. You got to push and pull that parent to help them come in. And they will come, but they got to see the welcome sign. Enter here. We want you. And we do need the parents. I still work for the schools, and I firmly believe that parents are the key to their children's happiness in terms of getting educated.
And what capacity do you do with the schools at this time?
Actually, I'm a school librarian, the media specialist at Shaw High School. And this is going on my 4th year. And previously, I worked for Cleveland Metropolitan School District as a media specialist.
So you're staying active within the school system?
Actually, yes, I am. And I enjoy reading, working with the teachers, working with the staff, working with the children, because you see, reading is the key to whatever you do, whether you're in school or out of school. And I tell folks that the library is your best friend, because when you're out of school, you're going to find yourself in a library at some point in time. Even if you just go to take out a DVD, you're going to find yourself in the local library.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the National Association of Black Storytellers. Would you, being in the school system, did they discover you there, or some of your other?
Well, actually, the National Association of Black Storytellers is out of Baltimore, based in Baltimore, Maryland, so Dr. Rhonda Williams may have heard of them. They've been around 30 years, just celebrated 30 years, 2012, November in Baltimore. We had an anniversary celebration there. I got involved with the Storytellers back in 1987. One of the storytellers called Baba Jamal Koran, he came to Cleveland, and the Cleveland Association of Black Storytellers was founded around that time. And he came to do storytelling, to get them involved, to um, get them activated as an affiliate organization. And so I got involved with the Storytellers officially back there. But all throughout my life, I say I've been a storyteller. I listened to my big mama Annie Mae tell stories, and I would retell her stories about the family. I would read, like I said, at school. I wasn't able to read, but I would always be able to tell the story of what the reading section or selection was about, because I would listen to the teacher read and listen to other children read. And I could retell what they said and make it exciting. And kids would say, oh, we like that, because you see, I guess my mama always said she always could act things out. And that was fun to me. That's the way I always like to play, act things out. So the Storytellers this is my first year as president. I'll be president for 2013 and 2014. And we're working to get more youth involved in storytelling. And this way they're learning about their history. They're learning about their heritage. It's helping them learn to think quickly on their feet, critically analyze things that they read about or think about. And it's helping them become a better person to realize that they may have a gift. They may not be able to sing, may not be able to dance, play an instrument, but they may have a gift of gab and use it.
Okay, and how will you be incorporating this position with the East Cleveland school system?
Well, actually, as a school librarian, I encourage the teachers and students to come into the library, select books, even though they may not be fiction books, get the nonfiction books, because in the nonfiction book, there's a story everywhere. You can tell about the city of East Cleveland, how it was founded. You can tell about George Washington on President Day. Make it interesting, not just say he was born, he was this, he was that, whatever. Make it interesting. Bring out some interesting tidbits about the person so it will make you want to read more and dig a little deeper. And maybe if a research project comes up, you can find the research in that area. So I think literacy is probably my greatest incorporation of working the storytelling piece in. Getting them involved in reading nonfiction books, and that will help them become better readers and thinkers in society, because see, life is basically nonfiction. And the fairy tale, they can do very good with the imaginative things, but when it comes to real life and real experiences, it's kind of hard to think ahead. And that's what I think I would like to do with my storytelling piece. Project, think.
Very good. I like that. Okay, well, you told us about some things that were very important to you as far as some of the fights that you've participated in the city of East Cleveland.
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to ask you a question about how do you think surrounding institutions have impacted the city of East Cleveland, and not just institutions, surrounding cities as well. Mm-hmm. How do you think they've impacted the city of East Cleveland?
Well, I think that first of all, we've gotten, folks have gotten the interest has grown in East Cleveland. For example, the parks, the county Department of Health, they're interested in, they work with the parks, and I think that's important. They do a cleanup with the Metro, I don't know if it's through Metro Parks or through the county is collaborating with someone. And every year, a couple times a year, they're out there trying to get more people in the community involved with helping to see that the parks are important and to clean it up, Rockefeller Park. And I love the park. And I think that's one way they've gotten involved. And that's a key, because I think that park is a key seller to the city of East Cleveland, and more people are actually using it. And I think more people should use it more and more. And we need to work closely with some of the organizations that could help us revitalize the tennis court there, because tennis is a game that you can play for life. The youth can play it, the middle-aged, the elderly. It's a life game, and it's a fun game, and it's good exercise. And I'm not really a tennis player. I walk or jog in the park, but tennis is really good there. So I think they can help us revitalize that, help us with trying to get people more involved in various collaborations as groups. The health center, for example, the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Health Center. If we could get more people or groups involved with taking preventative health measures rather than waiting until the ninth hour, that helps a great deal right there. So the collaboration of healthcare is a key it's a personal benefit that people are not taking advantage of. For example, I look at McDonald's sometime and I see all the older men there. Some I know and some from the community and some I don't. And I just wave, and some say, "You don't remember me?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I do." And I see that some of them are taking care of their health, and you can see it. And some are looking not too healthy, and it's showing. So it's something that we got to encourage. How do we get folks interested? And businesses, how do we revitalize the businesses that are here to want to stay here and make it affordable for them to stay? And also bring in new businesses. That's a key.
We need something to work on. Okay, what is your vision for a future East Cleveland?
My vision for a future East Cleveland is all of the houses that are abandoned and rejected to either be renovated, torn down, or put up for auction so that people can buy them and fix them up. That's one thing I would like to see the future East Cleveland actually do, because that's something your housing stock really tells your community. And I say the housing because there's so many various homes in East Cleveland. You got the large homes on the south side of Euclid, maybe the smaller homes on the north side of Euclid. And some of these homes are really, like, for example, I talked about Miss Evelyn Ragland Jones. She has authentic wood in her home. And you'd be surprised in some of these homes that it is actually where the original wood is still there, and it was taken care of. Some may have been painted over, but hers is one of those that's still there. And so we need people to move in those homes who really would take care of it and would be interested in it. It's history. History is there. So I think the homes, the businesses, the collaboration of various community groups coming together. You know, what do they have in Cleveland? They call it where they're learning. They go to, it was a program they had at Cleveland State where they learned all about the organizations in the city of Cleveland, surrounding areas. Well, they need something like that. We need something like that for East Cleveland, where people come in and they're training leaders, basically what it's all about. Leadership Cleveland, maybe that's what it was called. I'm not really sure. But where they're training folks to learn about their community. And those people are going out to work with groups in the community And so therefore, everybody is learning about the community and how they fit in it and what they can do to make it a more affordable community for everyone. And having the children learn about it. You see, that's the key. The youth, they're the key to the future. If it is to be, it's up to them. And we need to teach them now and help them, because when upon graduation, it's too late. Now is the key. Where do I live? I live in East Cleveland. What do I know about it?
Okay. What would you do to, let me say it again, what would you be prepared to do to participate in making East Cleveland better?
Well, what would I do, or what would I be prepared to do? Well, I won't say whatever I'm asked, because I don't wait to be asked. I just roll up my sleeves. If I see that there's something that we can do to bring our community together more, to as a group of people working in different organizations or with businesses or whatnot, I'll go and knock on the door. For example, I'm familiar with this National Endowment for Humanity's Big Read. And as I was looking at it, I said, oh, this would be great for us. We could do it here at the schools. But as I read it, I discovered schools cannot be initiators because the audience is so, I guess, we got to build in audience. It has to be a public library. So I took that idea to the East Cleveland Public Library Board of Trustees to say, why not try for a Big Read grant? And so we're going to try for it. If we don't get it, we still can do Big Read. And there are a number of books that they have on there, but the book that we're looking at is called A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest Gaines. This book teaches a lesson, and it's a lesson that we all can learn, whether we are young or whether we are not so young. It's not just because the person in the book is a youth or a younger person, because I guess if we all think about it, if we took a magic journey back to being young again, would we make the same mistakes? Could be. Chances are 90% of us probably would. But maybe the other 10% learn from their mistakes. But I think it's a learning opportunity for all ages with this particular Big Read. And if we don't get the grant, I would like to see the library purchase the books, or a certain number of books, and take it out in the community, into McDonald's with that group of men sitting there, doing read-alouds with them. Okay. Take it to the senior citizen buildings, to the schools. Bring them all together in a big group to start it out. I think the potential is there. Reading is the key, discussing, getting people involved. How do you get people involved in their community? You give them an opportunity to talk about it, to put hands on, to see what they can do. And each one brings something different and unique to the table. And I think that's what I would do.
That sounds great. I join your group.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for participating in this oral narrative. I've enjoyed this interview very much, and we'll be working with you on future projects.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye.